Zandar the Legend here today with a review of my personal homebrew card counter. I know we talked about it a little bit before the set actually released for Origins, and if I changed things up, because a lot of the cards I thought were going to be good weren't, but then there's some new key players that we just never expected. First thing with this deck I want to go over is the land base. I have 7 plains, 7 forests. I know you can't really see that, but that's important. We have 4 windswept heaths, which are pretty critical to making sure we have a plains or a forest at any given time, and 4 temple plenties. This is a variable card right now. I feel like you could run this deck probably without it, and I need to do more playtesting to see if I'm going to keep it in or not, because pretty much kind of an aggro deck in a way. This is about the only card that slows us down currently. I like the advantage of having another green-white source, and on top of that, being able to scry into something we need. Now we have all of our spells, instants, and sorceries on top, and creatures on the bottom. But let's go over the next critical part of this, and that's hardened skills. This is the card that's going to allow you to, if 1 or more +1/+1 counters be placed on a creature you control, that many counters +1 plus counter are placed on it instead. So basically you can have 2 or 3 of these in play at a time, and it works just like it reads. If you're going to place 1 +1/+1 counter on Servant of the Skull when he comes in, if you have 1 of these, he's a 2/2. If you have 2 of these, he's a 3/3. If you have all 4 of those out, which it's just never going to happen, he'd be a 5/5 when he comes to the battlefield. Servant of the Skull is also nice because he allows us, when he dies, it's a he, I don't know, it's got to be a, but could be a girl, I don't know. Whenever it dies, we can place those counters somewhere else. And the same thing in regards of, we move 2 counters from them, depending how many hardened skulls we have into play, we're really moving 4 counters, 5 counters, etc. Secret of the Way, really good card for, he's not really our win condition. He's the bomb that people feel like they need to get rid of. They feel like he's going to take over the game. There are games where he can win it for you. Just because him triggered some of our other instance abilities and even enchantments can do crazy things. It's really easy to get 40, 50, and 60 life gain in this deck and swing for 20 life gain in 1 round. And we'll go over that with this a little bit later. Basically, Secret of the Way, he has prowess. So he gets +1/+1 and he gets life gain whenever you cast a non. These are all going in advanced from 1 mana cost up to 2, 3. Their highest ones 5, and then potentially 6. Glorious Stance is actually survivability, and it's a win condition on this deck. And we'll go into that here just a little bit later. But he allows our creatures to gain indestructible, 1 creature, or destroy a creature with toughness 4 or greater. So he's really good about getting rid of big threats off the table. Heroic's Command, obviously a 4-of. Almost all these cards are 4-ofs, except for Servant of the Skull, and that's I used to run for, but due to tons of play testing, unless you get him out turn 1, he's just really not that good, I don't feel. Heroic's Command we're typically going to be using for +1/+1 counter and making our creature fight another creature in the same turn. This is also extremely good as enchant is starting to be a big thing again. There's a lot of enchantments out there. Turbo Fog, true enchantment decks, possibly even the heroic decks. So we can get rid of enchantments. Same thing, Corsair Crufix, or even if you run into the extremely rare like Perforos or some other of the God cards. Avatar the Resolute, this is actually one of our bigger bombs in the set. He comes out as a 3/2 with Reach and Trample. He really lets us block some dragons. He lets us trample through for damage. And that's the key thing once we get higher. Trample's going to be a thing. Key thing to Avatar the Resolute, he gets a +1/+1 counter for every other creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it. So, we have a Servant of the Skull out, and let's say even Hangerback Walker, which we'll go over here in a minute. He can come out as a 5/4 relatively easily. Even possibly get him out as a 6/5 or even a 7/6. The longer the game goes on and depending what's on the board. Keep in mind also, you're placing a +1/+1 counter on him, which triggers hardened skills again. So if we place 2 of them on him, he's going to get 3 or 4 because of hardened skills, depending how many we have out on the board at the time. Same thing with Dromoka's Command. We're placing the counter. So really, we can end up giving a creature 3/3 possibly with the Hardened Skulls. And can be really vital on Seeker of the Way, because we're instantly activating his lifelink. He's getting +1/+1 for casting the Dromoka's Command. He's getting a +1/+1 counter from the Dromoka's Command. So he's a 4/4, a 5/5, and then he could possibly be a 6/6 or a 7/7 with hardly any mana at all, thanks to Hardened Skulls. Next creature that's this is one of our bombs in the deck, is the Hangerback Walker. Typically, he's going to come into play as a 1/1 or a 2/2, but we're going to be able to ramp him up 3 to 4 times quicker due to Hardened Skulls up above. You can also use him with Dromoka's Command with Hardened Skulls. A lot of extra ways to get counters on him. We can even move the counters from Servant of the Skull over to him as well. If he's out early as a 1/1, he's going to help activate our Avatar of Resolute. Most importantly, if he dies, we're getting all those Thopter tokens. All right. Very easy to turn him into a 6/6 or an 8/8 very quick in this game. And then one of our win conditions for this is going to be, by that time we've done just enough damage that if you do 6 to 8 tokens in the air that are unblockable, people will never block this creature, it feels like. The only things you have to worry about with this creature is to silence the believers, or I believe it's Crackling Doom if he's one of your stronger creatures on the table at the moment. But if anything destroys him, sacrifices him, or anything off the table, he's dead, and you get the tokens. As long as he doesn't go to exile, we're going to get our tokens. But the key thing is, if they don't want to block him because he's a 4/4 or a 6/6, and they're just kind of chump blocking him, or they're just doing whatever they can so that way he's not dying, we can Valorious Stance our own Walker at the end of our opponent's turn, so we can swing with 5, 6, 8, whatever it is, in the air the next turn we have. Where this becomes extremely critical is with Gleam of Authority, which is a Dragons of Tarkir card that's worth nothing right now. And 2 is about the perfect number. I've tried running 3, it doesn't quite work, but 2 is where we want to be. And what this does, and it's completely broke in this deck, completely broke. When people play it, they want to read the card 3 to 4 times, and I don't blame them because it's ridiculous. You get to enchant creature, it gets +1/+1 for every single +1/+1 counter on other creatures you control. He gets Vigilance, and you can also bolster for a white. We don't care about bolstering, we care about the Vigilance, and we care about the token, or the +1/+1 counters. What this is going to do, we're typically going to cast this on a Thopter, and we're going to make a Thopter an 8/8 or a 10/10 and swing through for a game with Vigilance. And if they even try to kill it or do something crazy, we're going to Valorious Stance our Thopter and make it indestructible. So it's another win condition card in this deck. It's very easy to make something a 20/20 by like turn 7 in the game, thanks to all the token generator, or not the tokens, but all the counters we're doing with this deck. If we put this on a Seeker of the Way, the Seeker of the Way is going to be able to strike through. I mean, a perfect turn, which is just 4 mana, a Gleam of Authority, the Dromoka's Command. We're going to make it a Seeker of the Way at least probably an 8/8, closer to a 10/10 or a 12/12. It instantly gets lifelink. We're going to swing through and kill a creature that's going to try to block us. Even if it's something huge like an 8/8 or a 9/9, most likely we're going to kill it and live. Even if just for this turn, thanks to the prowess as well. And then we're going to swing through and attack again, and we're going to gain 20 life this turn. And it's really daunting. It'll cause your opponents to tilt just because Seeker of the Way. And then they're really going to try to bomb out this card next game. But our biggest bomb in win condition we haven't even went over yet, and that is the Mana Gorger Hydra. If they can't remove this threat immediately, it will win us the game almost every time between its Trample, and we can possibly even give it Vigilance, which I don't recommend using this card unless it's a win condition, because it's for every other creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it. So if your Mana Gorger Hydra is an 8/8, he doesn't get 16/16 because of this. Only every other creature's +1/+1 counters. So this needs to be somewhere else other than your Hydras. But your Hydras are going to have a crazy amount of counters on them if they're out for more than 2 or 3 turns, especially because of the Hardened Skulls. I mean, Hardened Skulls makes this whole deck work better, and it really scares your opponent into getting rid of, they're going to want to go enchantments to get rid of this. That's the only enchantment we have is Hardened Skills in this entire setup. And we have the enchantment or Gleam of Authority. So if they sideboard in 4, 5, 6 cards to get rid of enchantments, we're still fine, because this deck has plenty of synergy without Hardened Skills. But it's a big enough threat that they're going to want to sideboard against it, especially once they see, if they do see Gleam of Authority. Mana Gorger Hydra, I mean, he's very self-explanatory. Anytime any spell's cast, any spell, creature, instant, sorcery, anything, he gets a +1/+1. Very easy to have 2 Hardened Skills out. Or, I mean, it's very rare we don't have at least 1 Hardened Skills and him on turn 3. He'll turn into a 6/6 or a 9/9 pretty much within the next turn, depending what your opponent decides to do. If they try to Lightning Bolt him at that point, he's going to get a +1/+1, and he's going to get a +1/+1 from the Hardened Skills, or possibly even a 2. But Lightning Bolt won't kill him at that point. So then he comes into the... People will try to stoke him, or they're going to try to roast him, which was Valorious Stance him as well, as long as we have the extra mana to make him indestructible till end of turn. So he's going to grow from their spell and the Valorious Stance, and he'll get real big real quick. I'm telling you right now, it'll make him tilt. If they can't kill this guy within 1 or 2 turns, they're pretty much going to wipe up the game and not continue to play. I've had him turn into a 36-36 in a game, only on turn 10, I think. So, very huge bomb. Last couple cards, and one is a really late addition to this. Not Inspiring Call, though. Inspiring Call is a great card in this deck for card advantage. Being 3 mana for an instant cast, it's a little higher for our Rush theme with the deck. What this does is it gives us for draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter, but more importantly, they gain indestructible until end of turn. I don't know how many times I've attacked with a Servant of the Skill, a Seeker of the Way, an Avatar, or even a Hangerback. 3-4 creatures, they block appropriately to pretty much do a board clear, and you cast this one thing because nobody is ever expecting this card. All of our creatures live, and we're drawing 2, 3, 4 cards, whatever it may be. Typically, it's about 2 cards most from this, and our creatures live. Keep in mind, if we cast that, the Hydra grows the same turn, and if we have a Gleaming Authority out, it's going to grow instantly because the Hydra growing, it's pretty ridiculous all the way around. Gleaming Authority does not work off the Seekers of the Way prowess, though. It's only the counters, not him gaining +1/+1 from the ability. Our big last bomb in this deck is Dromoka the Eternal. We have 2 of. For 5 mana, we get a 5/5 flying. And every time he attacks, we get to bolster 2, which will typically put 3 or 4 +1/+1 counters on something, due to everything else. This late in the game, typically your walker's dead. So we now have a 5/5 flyer, and we usually have a couple Thopters out at that point. And our Thopters are going to be 1 toughness, so they're going to get the bolster. And you always bolster an opposite card of your Gleaming Authority if you have that out currently on a Thopter. It's very easy to do 9 to 10 air damage in 1 round, the way that's set up. Our last card, which is a very late addition to this deck, and I have not gotten to play test it yet, is our 2 Become Immense. We have just enough cards to really be filling up our graveyard. Opponents feel like they have threats all the way across the board, which honestly every card here is a threat except for Servant of the Skill. And sometimes they even just try to clear him off while the board's empty, so we lose the token, or lose the counter, which happens a lot. This is going to allow us to swing through that Thopter 1 last time, what's possibly going to make our Seeker of the Way even bigger and activate his lifelink. It really makes it all come together. Now, the most important thing to this deck is going to be the sideboard after we go over this. Let me get that set up and I'll be right back. Alright, back with our sideboard for the hard counter deck now. This is what really makes the deck a lot more fun. Actually, the deck's insanely fun to play anyways. If you definitely have the cards, it's worth making. But this is what's going to allow us to shine in some of our other matchups. First off, we have 2 Dragonlord Dromokas. He has lifelink, he has flying, he can't be countered. They can't cast spells during our turn. Really, really helpful for playing Esper Dragons, other big control-heavy decks. This is going to allow us to live. Johnny, the Mentor of Heroes, he's going to be rotating out here soon. But I do like this card for the fact it's another 5-drop. It's a Planeswalker, so it's a little harder to get rid of unless they're playing Abzan, I feel like. And we get to pretty much put 3 +1/+1 counters every turn out. It can really be up to 6 or 9 counters, depending if we have 1 or 2 hardened skulls in the field. Now, if we were to go extremely crazy, we could say we had 4 hardened skulls, played this because we never got a board clear or anything. We're going to be able to put out 12. I'm way wrong. It would be 5, and it'd be 15. 15 counters. Add those out. We have 2 Infinites of the Kintry Spirits. This is kind of for our creature-heavy decks. This is a 2 white cost, which I'm not too fond of that early in the game. We're running a little more green-heavy, it feels like, but every time a non-token creature enters the battlefield, we can bolster 1/1, but it's under your control. So she might not even be staying in the sideboard for right now. She used to be in the main deck, but she just never performed like how we wanted her to. Avatar the Resolute's much more solid. Now, here's some cards we need for what we're weak against. We're really weak against super aggro token-heavy decks, or really creature-heavy decks. So we have 3 Hallowed Moonlights, and the reason we have these is until end of turn, if it enters the battlefield and it wasn't cast, we can exile it instead for every creature, and we get to draw a card for just 2 mana. This is really nice for like Hordling Outburst, Dragon Fodder, but it's extremely nice for the one card everybody doesn't like, and that's Collected Company. It keeps both the Collected Company creatures from entering the field, instant ability, so you can recounter the end of your turn with that, and we get the card advantage from it as well. Very solid, it helps us survive tokens and Collected Company deck. End Hostilities, this is here for like Abzan Aggro, a couple of the other bigger decks. Even maybe Green-Red Dragons, it depends. Typically Green-Red Dragons doesn't do too well against our deck. Tier 1 deck, it doesn't compete unless they have perfect opening hands and really get the cards they need. In Hostilities, it allows us to destroy all creatures and the permanents attached to those creatures. Yeah. But if we have walkers, we get Thopter tokens. We're still creating creatures on our side. Even if it's a board clear, it could potentially help us out. Last card here, this is for our artifact and enchantment decks. We're already running so much enchantment removal. This pretty much makes those players give up. It's 4 more ways to get enchantments off the board. It's a little bit higher. We're not playing naturalized here because I like having a creature, but I like getting rid of artifacts as well. Most importantly, they don't get to choose to sacrifice. We get to choose which one we want to destroy. Really makes the Caterpillar a strong 4-of in this deck in case we're facing like the new Thopter artifact matchups, or just some of the other just janky things out there that are artifacts. But if they're running any enchantments, 3 mana, we get to play it the turn it comes out and sacrifice him and destroy it. Let me know what you guys think. If there's something you change about this deck, or possibly even the sideboard. Like I said, the only things we're really kind of curious about right now is probably the 2 Infinites of the Kintry Spirits on the sideboard, and the main board would be the Temple Plenties and the Become Immense, since we're just now kind of getting used to those as well. So let me know what you guys think. Build it, play with it. I've played about 30 games on X-Mage now. When I say games, I mean rounds of 3, typically 2 as we win or people drop. This deck really puts people on tilt, really has people not knowing what to expect next. There's a lot of utility cards in this deck that just don't get used in other Tier 1 competition decks you see out right now. I don't know what the metagame is at your current local card shop when you go play Friday Night Magic, but I can promise you one thing. This deck will put up a fight, and it'll slaughter some people with Trample, Lifelink, and just a crazy amount of tokens. I hope your math's good. I hope you have more counters than you know what to do with. Most importantly, I hope you have fun playing it. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button if you like this deck tech review from a homebrew from Zandar the Legend. And hey, tell your friends about it. Have them come here, look at the deck list, have them build it. If you're going to make changes to it, let me know. And most importantly, if you played at Friday Night Magic, I want to know how you do. So leave me a message down below with that. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and keep playing Magic.